making a Reaper of Souls panel.
What's up, guys? Yeah. Okay, how was day one? Good, good. Hopefully not everybody's super hangover, because we have a lot of really cool, sort of an exciting things for us to cover today. Yesterday was really awesome for me. I got to meet a lot of you guys, got to spend a lot of time talking, and let's just hope my voice lasts for one more hour. So keep your fingers crossed. So my name is Josh Mosquera. I'm the game director, and on stage I have our lead designer, Kevin Martins, and our game designer, Travis Day, and Julian Love, Roger Houston, and John Yang. So welcome to the Evolving Reaper of Souls panel. Now today, this panel is really special for us because we're doing it very differently from any of our other panels to date. The first thing we're going to do is, as a community, we've gone through an amazing ride over the last 2.5 years. So today we're going to look back at the highs and the lows. I'm going to talk about how we got to where we are right now. But before that, and the real sort of star of this panel, is the legendary workshop where we together are going to design an epic item for you guys to find in-game. And to do that, I'm going to hand it over to Julian Love, our technical designer. Julian.
All right, thanks. Welcome to the legendary workshop. We've been super excited about doing something like this for a long time. We wanted to have some opportunity for you guys to get not only an idea about how we design things, but actually to take part in some way in the process that we do. So, as Josh mentioned, we're going to design a legendary item live on stage today. And that legendary item that we design is something that we will put into the game in a future patch. So, how are we going to do this? We need to have an understanding of the process that we're going to use. So we're going to use a process today that's exactly like the one that we use back at the offices to design all sorts of stuff. Items, monsters, player skills. This is exactly the way we do it. So we call this process gather, refine, and reflect. It's a pretty simple process. This is how it works. We have the first stage, we're going to gather. Gather is really just a brainstorm. We just want to get as many ideas as we can get. We want all ideas. All ideas are welcome. We're not going to judge them. There's a reason for this, and that's because we believe that there's a kernel of goodness in every idea. Even the terrible ideas. Look at an idea and say, what the? That doesn't fit. But sometimes there's something really cool in there that we can pull out and translate that into fun gameplay. So we don't want you to judge. We want all the ideas. Now, once we have our giant list of ideas to work with, the next phase we move into is refine. And what refine is all about is taking that big list of ideas and whittling it down into a small focused list of viable gameplay designs. So we're going to move from ideas to designs in the refine phase. Okay, along the way now, some ideas are going to be left exactly as they were. It's like, that's a great idea. We're going to go with it. We're going to leave it right as it is. Some ideas are going to have to get translated. Like, maybe they weren't so hot, but we can translate them into something that's really cool. All right? So they're going to get changed. And some ideas, well, you know, they can't all be zingers. All right? So some ideas we're going to have to throw away. But here's the thing about when we throw away ideas, is that we don't just part ways with them forever. Instead, we put them in what we call an idea graveyard. And much like the graveyards of Sanctuary, stuff is getting resurrected from there all the time. Only when they come back, they don't want to eat your brain. So even if we pass on your idea today, doesn't mean that it's gone forever, because we're just going to take the list back with us, and we may do something with it in the future. All right, so now we understand, last phase, reflect. Reflect is really simple. When we're done, you need to know what we did with all of your ideas. So obviously, we're going to talk about the one idea that we think is the legendary that we want to go forward with and put in the game in a future patch. But also, we need to spend some time talking about the game ideas that we passed on and why. We won't be able to cover every idea today because we've got a ton, but we'll cover a few so you have an understanding of why we decided to pass on it. Okay, so now we understand how we're going to work. We understand the process. We're just about ready to get started. But here's the thing. So we've been gathering ideas actually since the show opened yesterday. We've had people giving us ideas or submitting ideas through the internet via Twitter, right? And on our online forums. And of course, at our community booth here at the show floor, people have been able to just submit their ideas directly. And we thought, you know, what would really kind of put the icing on this cake today is if we had a few pre-selected members of our audience come up on stage and brainstorm with us, you know, in real time. So we're going to do just that. And so I'd like to welcome our guest designers up on stage today. Let's give them a big round of applause. It's super brave of them to come up and throw their ideas out. And we should get to know them a little bit. So tell us your name and where you're from.
Chris Adams, I'm from Minnesota.
And what's your favorite class?
Definitely be a wizard. I'd love to be a caster.
Sweet. And your name?
I'm Jonathan Wolk from San Francisco. Encoded Nibble is my username on Battle.net. Or Nibble. Encoded Nibble is too long.
Cool. All right. And your name? And
Rocky Nicholson. And my favorite class would be the monk and then the wizard.
yeah. All right. And your name and where you're from?
What up, BlizzCon? How you guys doing? Good evening. I'm Damons. I come from Twitch.tv.
Sweet. All right. So we've got our talent. All right. We've got the people that we need to get those final few ideas that are really going to send this thing off. And so here's how it's going to work. We're going to go off into the background a little bit here and quietly do some brainstorming. And while we're doing that, Josh is going to kick off the Evolving of Reaper of Souls panel.
All right. Thanks, Julian. I expect greatness from you guys. All right. So now, like I said, we're going to do something different. As a community, you know, as the people behind Diablo 3 and Reaper of Souls, and as you awesome players, we've been through an epic journey. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to go on that journey, and we're going to see how we got from Diablo 3 to the present day with Reaper of Souls. And this transformation, because that's what it is, really began with a team embracing what we feel is a fundamental core to a game like Diablo. And it all starts off with epic heroes. That's why you guys are playing. Whether you're the Crusader, the Barbarian, the Demon Hunter, the Witch Doctor, the Monk, the Wizard, you guys are playing bigger than life heroes and fighting the forces of darkness for the promise of epic loot. And this is a main point that really underpinned this transformation, is how to make sure that finding items in-game was the most rewarding way of getting those items. So where are we today? Well, we're in this era of less is more. This is what it used to look like when Diablo 3 launched and you killed the Butcher. A whole lot of nothing, junk. Flash forward to today, and you're finding more of the items you want more frequently, and those items are really changing the way you play the game. Because the next thing that was important for us is we wanted those items, those legendaries, to really change the way you play the game. And today we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing people change builds and trying different things out based on what items they found. And the final thing for us in this transformation is we wanted to make sure that the hardest items to find in the game were the most powerful items in the game. So that's what we've done. This is where we are right now with Loot 2.0. But now we're going to go back, and we're going to look at where we were and where we started. So how many here were with us when we launched Diablo 3? Thank you. Thank you for being there. Right? So, you guys remember this? Linear difficulty?
Yeah,
awesome,
the difficulty
right?
wall. This was where I was stuck in Hell, Act 3. The first Herald of Pestilence I saw would kill me over and over again out in the battlefields. This is our insurmountable wall. You know, this seemed like a good idea at the time, and now it seems incredibly outdated and old-fashioned.
And it was hard. Right, Travis?
Yep.
My experience was more similar to the Barbarian. I think I spent the bulk of my time killing Butcher in Act 1.
So who died a lot in Inferno at launch? Right?
Let's give this a minute to... Okay.
Oh. All right. So, and who remembers this? What were we thinking?
This handsome demonic UI here, this is the Elite Timer. The idea behind this was pretty simple, that, all right, let's say you could do just enough DPS that you could kill the monster, but he had a huge amount of it. We didn't want you kiting him around for 2 hours or something like that to slowly work your way through killing him. So if you couldn't kill him at what we decided was a reasonable amount of time, he would go crazy and you would either run away or get wiped, and that was a message to you. Thankfully, that has long since been cut, and we found hopefully much better solutions for that.
And when you were running away from the elites, what were you fighting? Pots.
I think Alex Fraziabi and myself spent a lot of time in Act 4 Heaven doing something similar to this.
To be fair, these particular pots are in fact evil, but the main reason that you fight them is because they don't hit back in Inferno.
Yeah. And what else? Oh, this awesome screen.
Yeah, that's the Al-Kaiser run quest step. You would basically just flip the game over and over and farm the same parts of Act 3.
And then the loot.
That's all garbage.
Don't you need to identify them one at a time first, Travis?
They're not 63. You can shard them. They're fine.
Okay, they're all garbage.
So little story, it actually, with my live character, it took me over 100 hours to find my first legendary. And that was just felt wrong and broken.
108 hours, and it was a cinder coat. Remember the moment.
So when we couldn't find items in game.
Oh, hey, remember when 120 million gold seemed like a fantastic deal for anything ever? Mempo Twilight. The auction house. Well, we'll get to that in a second.
So what happened, right? What we were thinking. And to that, I'm going to hand it over to Kevin. And he's going to sort of walk us back and really show you guys where our philosophy was when Diablo 3 shipped.
This is really something different for us. We do want to show you guys the behind-the-scenes arguments, the conversations we had, some of the difficult choices that we needed to make to try to figure out where to go with where we started. So these problems that we talked about came up pretty fast. And we use the word philosophy a lot, and philosophy is a set of rules. It's not just a set of rules, it's a set of rules that have some intention behind it. So to explain why all of that stuff happened, there's a lot of things that were going on, and that's why it was so complicated to fix as well. First and foremost, the idea that we wanted a long reward tail, literally years long. The concept that the items we had at launch would be something you would still be searching for or searching for better versions years after launch. And that basically resulted with us being very stingy. Of the items you found, there was a lot of muddiness behind it as well. So the quality tier overlap fallacy, or Tukatov, is designer bullcrap speak to tell you that there was the concept that if you had a blue sword and you replaced it with a yellow sword, that didn't mean that all blue ones were garbage from then on out. The top end of blue still had the potential to be better than a yellow, and that just made it muddy. That was another old-fashioned idea we had, that we thought that was one of the secrets that would have given it a longer reward tail. Instead, I think at this point we now realize that that resulted in a lot of frustration. And then this is the big one, and everything since patch 2.0, even some of the patches before Reaper of Souls, has been us taking randomness and sanding the rough edges off of it. There was a time when randomness was the goal for the game, and we had lost sight of the fact that randomness is simply a tool to get replayability. That was the real goal. And so randomness, it took over. It took over in the levels, it took over in the items especially, which is mostly what we're talking about today to demonstrate this problem. And you see in Reaper of Souls, we have used this tool differently to make replayability. It finally dawned on me that, that was the problem, is we were aiming in the wrong direction. Close, but not close enough. Which brings me to near misses. This is a quiver with strength on it. Barbarians do not need quivers, but they do need strength. Demon Hunters do not need strength, but they do need quivers. This item is complete garbage, in Travis's terminology from earlier, and your bags were full of this stuff. This also came from a good intention that would give, it would be an exciting moment. You think, oh, this item's almost good enough. If only that strength was something different, it would have been good, and it would keep you interested in the item game hunt. or it would drive you crazy, as many of you informed us that it in fact did. So now, of course, we have enchanting, so that if you do have a near-miss item, you can re-roll that stat and make it something useful for you. But this also just happens way less with smart drops. The item is going to be, first of all, quivers are very unlikely to drop for barbarians. If one does drop your demon hunter, it's not going to have strength on it. And so when you are fixing something, you're fixing something you can use anyway and making it a little bit better with enchanting. Loot fountains are awesome, but I do not mean to say that loot fountains are not awesome. We put this one on loop because this is just fun to watch. Woo, loot fountains. However, if everything you found in it was this.
Wait, orange. That might be legendary.
Okay,
Might be.
Those are legendary rubber gloves, but they probably didn't have a special stat on them either. So it might have been good strength on those maybe. So how did we solve this problem? We went back to basic design rules to talk about how all of this stuff combined. We asked ourselves 3 questions, and these are problem-solving questions. Why do we play this game? When somebody first picks it up, what's bringing them here at all? And this pointed out that we had an efficiency versus a fantasy problem. The fantasy is simple. We're selling you that epic hero that Josh talked about earlier. You're a demon hunter. The demons destroyed your family. You were taken in by an elite group of warriors and trained to be a perfect killing machine. You're powered by hatred, controlled only by your discipline. That is a strong fantasy. However, we're making a loot-based game, and this applies to all the loot-based games I've ever played. Efficiency. You guys want that gear, as do we, as fast as possible and as powerful as possible. This is one Google search, right? This is Diablo farming, over 500,000 hits. Change some of the words, you can get millions more, right? This is something it's clearly telling us that intention is real. So we were trapped there, that fantasy of playing that demon hunter was not matched by the loot you were getting in the game, which led to this problem. Because of that difficulty wall, because of the stinginess of that long reward tail, because even when you got that quiver you wanted, Demon Hunter, it probably had strength on it, you ended up realizing that the auction house became, at some point, a more efficient way to get items. We're driven by efficiency, so we shopped instead of played. This was a better way to get items. When you did go back in the game with that stuff, probably you experienced flip farming. So flip farming is what we call taking a piece of content and playing it over and over again. The Al-Kaiser one was a particularly popular one back in the day at original launch, and this was a small piece of Act 3 that had the best amount of efficiency. It could be just gear, like it's got good chests or lots of elites. It could be gold and experience. Ideally, it's all 3. And there were times in the game where instead of seeing this, instead of being in combat most of the time, you literally were in the menus more than you were in the game. For individual elite kills, like say Manglemaw, he was so close to the checkpoint that you could kill him and get back to the screen and spend more time resetting your game than it actually took to kill him. I can assure you that was not our intention when we made Diablo 3, to show you this menu very much. It would have been a lot, I don't know, fancier and more interactive if that was the case. Okay, so this is the fantasy we're trying to build, right? Like, this should be the best moment in the game. I opened a chest, or I killed a rift boss, and I've got oranges and yellows, and I've got materials. I can use all this stuff, right? There was a time when your auction house email message was the most exciting moment in the game. Yay, my auction came through! And, oh, hey, that's a lot of gold. Boo. Yeah. So that's absolutely not what we intended to do, but we were trapped there, and we were starting to realize how these things weren't tying together, but it got complicated. So we tried to start to fix it, and I'm going to pass it to Travis to talk about the season of the patch.
Thanks, Kevin. So we had all these issues that we were trying to address that Kevin just mentioned, and we started patching the game, trying to fix them, and we put a lot of time and a lot of work into these patches. As you can see, there were numerous. So we wanted to address one of the things initially was the difficulty. There was this idea that players really wanted a challenging game, and it was fun to die over and over and over again. And we had a lot of talks later about, well, maybe that's not right. But we also wanted to fix that and still preserve this really exciting, difficult content for some people. So we introduced the monster power system. This let us take the difficulty of the game and make it more approachable so that the ravine entrance in Act 2 didn't kill everybody in the world. We also added Paragon levels. The real reason for these is because as much as we love item drops and as much as they're really the spirit of the game, sometimes the random number generator isn't a kind. And we wanted players to be able to make continual progress even if they were having a really bad evening farming items. And then we also added things like Ubers and the Hellfire Ring. The Ubers were yet another way for us to sort of provide a long tail of item content for the hardcore players who really want it without preventing everyone from being able to play the game at large. And we added things like the Hellfire Ring, which made this content really replayable so that if you wanted to spend 50, 100 hours fighting Ubers, you could do that. But while we were working on all this, meanwhile over on console...
Yes, so you know what, Travis and Kevin and the rest of the team were very much in the front lines of really trying to really sort of change the game and evolve the game. So the console team, so we were off sort of on the side incubating what Diablo 3 on console was going to be all about. And from day one, we had one very simple goal. Our goal was to make the most awesome console version of Diablo. And we were giving a mandate to change what we needed to change to deliver on that promise. So the end result of that is that console became a very safe place for us to challenge a lot of the assumptions and a lot of the limitations that the PC team was operating under. So we were able to look at loot, right? We also tried to figure out how to translate this awesome PC classic to make it feel like it was hand-built for a controller. And we also changed the camera to make the action more immersive. But the biggest change that console allowed us to make was just how to think about loot. And in a lot of ways, the road from Diablo 3 to Reaper of Souls really began with a problem I ran into, in May of 2011 when I just joined Blizzard. I was trying to play the game a lot, really trying to understand what the team was building with Diablo 3, and I found these two items. So I was playing, having a lot of fun. Now these item tooltips are from a pre-beta build, so you'll see affixes that, for many reasons, did not make it into the final game. But there I was playing, and as a player, I could not decide which of these two items was better. Like, do I want 71% more damage on my wizard, or is 24% damage overall and 48% critical damage better? I did not know. And if I did not know as a player, I knew as a designer that we were going to have a tremendous challenge to help players understand the nuances of this awesome item game that the team was building. So I took a chance and I said, we need to try to fix this. Because it's not just for the players who played Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, but with Diablo 3, there's going to be a legion of new players who want to experience that awesomeness of being an epic hero fighting that epic loot. So we needed to figure out a way to indoctrinate these players into the item game. So I proposed what we needed to do is add clicker. Oh no. Oh, there we go. To add item compare tooltips. But this was very controversial at the time. First, well, Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 did not need it, so why did we need it on Diablo 3? Again, because we were expecting a legion of new players to come on board. But the other sort of big challenge was, well, why is the game telling me which affixes are important? Shouldn't the player decide that? And we went through a lot of conversations, a lot of discussions, some of them heated. But at the end of the day, we shipped Diablo 3 with the item compare tooltips. We continued to evolve them on console. But really what was happening is these item compare tooltips were a symptom, right? It didn't dawn on us until much later that the real problem was that our item philosophy, the stuff that Kevin talked about, was off the mark. We had this notion that the item game was supposed to last for 10 years without any patches, right? We were dropping way too many items. Our legendaries were nothing but just stats. And the thing is, we did treat all affixes equally. So again, console allowed us to really challenge a lot of this stuff and really sort of move forward. So console is really loot 1.5. And when it shipped, the reception of it was overwhelmingly positive. People loved the fact that we were dropping fewer trash, more legendaries, and people were really liking it. So that gave us a lot of momentum to really make the changes we needed to make. But there was one more thing that I think as a team, and even as a studio, as Blizzard, we needed to do, and that is what to do with the auction house. Now, very much from the beginning, the auction house turned into a Kobayashi Maru scenario of our own. It was a no-win scenario. We had the best of intentions. We wanted to protect players from gray market sites that dominated a lot of D2. We wanted to bring that experience under the safety of the Blizzard umbrella. We also wanted to give players a different vector to get those items. But what happened is that players ended up playing the auction house and not the game, right? Because of how stingy we were when we launched Diablo 3, because of the insane difficulty of Inferno, we were funneling players who would normally have not gone to the auction house, were going to the auction house. And in the process, they were wrecking the reward loop. They were robbing themselves of the magic that is Diablo, of the magic of killing a monster and seeing the legendary drop and picking it up and saying, that was awesome. So shortly after console shipped, we had our monthly strategy meeting with all the leadership of Blizzard. And because of Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone, there were some behind-the-scenes changes we needed to make to the way the auction house worked. During the whole meeting, they're discussing the pros and cons and sort of how to make these little small changes. But Mike Morheim noticed that, I hadn't said anything during this entire meeting. And he turns to me and he says, Josh, you've been quiet. What do you think? And I remember being at that moment, like, in total panic, right? Because I could have sort of played it safe and sort of like agreed with some of the changes were being proposed. Or I said, I can speak what I really believe in. And I said, Mike, I think what we need to do, the right thing for us to do, is to kill both the gold and real money auction houses and preserve the integrity of the promise behind Diablo. And what was incredible is within 20 minutes, the entire leadership of Blizzard agreed because they knew deep down inside that that was the right thing for us to do. And a couple days later, we announced that the auction house was dying. And that's been, thank you. And it was a really big moment because I think it reaffirmed to us our commitment to making Diablo 3 the most awesome game we can and we could. And that change really allowed us to move forward and really deliver Loot 2.0 to you guys. So, talking about epic loot, Julian, guys, it's time to reflect or gather. They're busy. He's busy writing notes. I believe he solved world hunger.
We were so engrossed in writing down ideas. Yeah, it's been crazy. Can't wait to share some of these with you, which is kind of what I want to do right now. As we head into the refine phase, you can see the whiteboard's filled with stuff. In fact, we didn't even get time to get all the community ideas up there, which we will. But I thought maybe we should spend some time just looking at some of the craziness that comes out of this format. When you welcome every idea and you get a group of people together and you get the stuff flowing, stuff just starts happening. So let's talk about this one. Where was it? It's the witch doctor. Yeah, this one. Whose ideas with? Yeah. So tell us about your witch doctor's exploding head idea.
Okay, so basically, you're the witch doctor. He has tons of heads that he carries around. He walks around, explodes his own head. A bunch of bats or bugs come out, attack everybody, kill everyone else around. He regrows his head or puts a head he has carrying up on his head again.
Yeah, that's got all sorts of awesomeness. Okay, who else had an idea they'd like to share? So many, yeah. Somebody had an on dodge. Wait a minute. Okay, I'll share one from the community. How about that? Let's talk about that. So here's one where monsters that are caught in the witch doctor's grasp of the dead area would explode if they were killed while in that area, right? So pretty straightforward. Understand, like, okay, I'm going to maximize my damage by trying to make sure that monsters are going to die there. Okay, so at this point, I think we just want to head into the refine phase, start to whittle these things down, do some translating, throw a few away, and then when we're done, we'll have the reflect portion where we're going to talk about the one that's going to make it into the game. Now, I'd like to thank our guest designers today. They did an awesome job, but it is time for us to say goodbye. So why don't you give them a really big round of applause as they exit the stage.
Woo. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. You were really awesome. Truly. Okay, and now I'm going to send it on back to Kevin.
All right, so Josh explained all the things that we learned on console, and Travis talked about many of the things that we had learned in the patch. And as we had realized that many of the things that we were treating were sort of symptoms of the larger problem, it started to figure out how all of this tied together into something big, and that's where Loot 2.0 came out. And so when that happened, we were finally starting to really solve some of these problems in a way that we could work with from here on out and continue to evolve. So we had that problem of efficiency beating fantasy, that you would just play tiny parts of the game. I think the real solve for that in the items was that we made legendaries clearly the best items, and we made them way better. Legendaries had awesome powers now. They weren't just sticks that had higher stats on them. They actually did something, and they changed your game. And so that made it so that the most efficient thing to do in the game, the highest DPS items, the best health items, etc., made the fantasy of those heroes, those epic heroes, better. If you found a bow for a demon hunter, whatever it did, you felt more like a demon hunter than before you had that bow. And so that was a way to embrace that. Like, that is not something that you can fight against in a loot-based game. We all want efficiency. So how do we make that feel the fantasy? Shopping, not playing. So it wasn't just a matter of shutting down the auction house. We had to find some way to replace it because it was serving to be a place where you could actually get upgrades. So until we could add a lot of items and all of the other elements like Loot 2.0, until all of that came online, the auction house actually did serve a role. All of this stuff had to come together before we could shut it down and make it so that you didn't miss it at all. And then finally, flip farming. This one is what we talked about last year. We made variety the best way to play the game. The most efficient way to play is to see lots of monsters, lots of zones, lots of different combinations of affixes, lots of different items. That became a lot more fun than any of the individual flip farming things. And every time one of those things pops up, you notice that we usually buff adventure mode to make it better so that doing more things is more fun. So that story, all those difficult conversations, everything that we've been through with you guys this last year, it's all reflected in any modern tooltip. Smart drops, seeing that quiver, you're just going to see it way more often for your demon hunter. The affix groups, admitting that not every affix is created equally and giving you guidelines as to what to pay particular attention to and what becomes a value add for your build. The legendary affix, well, first, most legendaries actually have one now. And as you probably will start to notice, we're not just leaving existing legendaries without affixes. We're spending a good amount of our time, maybe half, maybe more, adding legendary affixes to all of the ones that are already in the game so that we don't have two classes of legendary items. The old ones from Diablo 3 launch, which you consider to be basically garbage, and the new ones which have awesome build-changing legendaries. So we'll continue to try to make what's already there better, not just add new things. We shared the math with you. There was a time where you rolled critical hit chance 9%. Is that 9 out of 100%? Is that 9 out of 9? I have no idea how good this item is. Now you can see where that roll is, and you know whether you need to find something else or whether you've got a really good item already. And finally, the compare tooltip. Here's the most modern version of it. You guys have probably seen some other iterations in past betas and so on. The one that started this avalanche of decisions about us just having too much loot and not doing it, the right things with it. It's still in there, and at a glance, you can see whether this item deserves special attention or not. So with Reaper of Souls and Loot 2.0, we didn't stop there. We are still evolving the game. We launched patch 2.1. We had entire new modes like seasons. We had entirely new features like greater rifts, new content, and as we showed with what's new yesterday, more of all of that stuff is coming. So how has our philosophy evolved as well? We've learned a lot from Reaper. We're learning a lot every day, and we're trying to apply these lessons. The most important thing I think that we're working on right now is to continue to tune rewards in every manner, from what the rewards actually are to where they're placed, to continue to encourage variety of experiences of different modes, not just doing greater rifts or just bounties or just Nephilim rifts, to keep that flow going widely. And then focusing on the fantasy. Every Blizzard game does this. This is the #1 rule of game design at Blizzard, and this is the first and last question we ask. A good example of this is the buff to awesome philosophy that we've tried to do here. When we have something that's overpowered, we no longer want to nerf it to bring it back down to where other things are. We'd rather balance everything else up to that point. We were too tentative on the Crusader when it launched, and we buffed everything on it. And now we didn't change the skills, we just buffed the hell out of it. And it feels like a really fun class to play now. So this is finally the time where we're going to show off a whole bunch of new items. And to start off that process, Travis is...
It's time for the future.
Yeah, Travis is going to show you guys 2 of the sets that are already in the game and talk about all that, the evolution of the philosophy, directly what we learned about these sets and how they apply to the new ones that he's going to show you right after that.
Thanks, Kevin. So as Kevin said, and as the name of the panel implies, we're always learning new things. And working on Reaper of Souls, we took a lot of the things from Diablo 3 and sort of iterated on them. And our philosophy continues to evolve, so I want to tell you an example of how that happens. So when we first shipped Reaper of Souls, we had a ton of people coming and giving us feedback, both at work, on the forums, at home. And they would come and go, man, witch doctors suck. Like, my witch doctor can't kill anything. My demon hunter buddies are clearing the hardest stuff in the game. And we were like, okay, that's really good. And we started talking about this a lot at work. And then a couple weeks later, without changing anything, we had everyone else in the game coming to us and going, man, witch doctors are way too good. Jade Harvester is completely out of control. They're farming tier 6, and I'm not even anywhere near it. So we started talking about this a lot more, and we eventually came to the conclusion, like, look, we started the witch doctor with this really cool idea. The whole Jade Harvester set was, I love dots, I love damage over time spells, and I really want a set that's just all about that. And we started with this fantasy of, well, what if you could make your damage over time spells explode? And we're like, all right, yeah, let's just make it. Like, who knows? Maybe it'll be good, maybe it's not, but it sounds cool. So we made that set, and we put it in, and this is what it looks like. And a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this. Witch Doctor runs around, puts his damage over time spells and everything, pops a soul harvest, hooray, collect loot. So we decided, you know what, this is exactly what we want all of our playstyles to be. This is what we want everyone to look like. We don't think the Witch Doctor's too good. We think everyone else needs to be as awesome as the Jade Harvester set. So we took that philosophy and we started moving forward and applying that to other sets that we had made, one of which was a Marauder set. So we said, okay, let's make this set really, really strong. Let's make your turrets do insane damage. You have all the pets. And then we put that in the game, and we went, all right, demon hunters are really powerful now. But then we stopped and sort of examined it and went, yeah, here's the problem, though. They just run around and drop turrets. Like, they're not really engaged. It's not fun. It's strong, but it's definitely not what we would consider good design. So because of that, this sort of led to this new philosophy that we've adopted, which is no power without gameplay. Being strong is fun. Finding cool items is fun. It wouldn't be as fun if you had an item that said, everything around you dies all the time. It'd be like, all right, that's fun for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna go kill everything that ever made me want to punch my monitor. And now I'm bored. So now we sort of incorporate that into all of our future legendary and set designs. And I'm gonna show you some new items and how we apply that new philosophy. That cat is a Witch Doctor Mojo. It's one of the best things you're ever gonna see in this game.
Woo! Meow. Meow. Who likes cats?
Travis, does he have a name, the kid?
I have no idea. It's one of the artist's cats, so
Okay.
you'd have to ask him. He must be really mad at it.
I'm going to call him Mr. Pickles.
All right, Mr. Biggles it is. So some of the items and some of the philosophies that we want to continue trying to apply, we're taking and we're bringing that and applying it to old items as well as new items. In some upcoming future patches, we're going to start adding 6-piece bonuses to some of the legacy sets like Natalia's and Immortals Kings. We're also going to be improving existing sets like this. So Raiment of the Thousand Storms was another set where we just sort of had this nugget of an idea. We had this really cool fantasy of what we wanted it to be. We thought, man, monks are all about dashing all around the screen, being really mobile. Let's make a set about dashing strike. Sounds cool. So we did that. The first pass was not very good. The second pass, where you dash to a target and explode for damage, we were like, all right, this is pretty cool. But then you would get the fist weapon that would refund charges if it was far away, and then you just kind of turn into a ping pong ball. And we were like, all right, well, it's kind of good. It's not really fun. So we're taking another stab at it, incorporating all of the things we've learned since Reaper of Souls. And this is the new take on Raiment of Storms. So for everything I'm about to show you guys, none of this is going to PTR. Numbers may be placeholder, but this is what we have today. In the case of the Raiment set, the two-piece is going to make your generators do more damage, because at its core, we want monks punching things in the face. That's your job. Just punch a dude in the face if he pisses you off. The four-piece bonus is going to make it so that when you're punching things in the face, you'll get back charges of your dashing strike and also be able to carry a lot more charges. And then the six-piece will make it so your dashing strike still deals a ton of damage, but now dashing strike itself is actually the source of damage, so you can compound that with dashing strike damage items and things of that nature, and get a more cohesive playstyle where you're punching a bunch of dudes and periodically darting around the screen like a ninja or monk. We're also updating items. So rings are one that people give us tons of feedback for obvious reasons. Rings are insanely strong. We've got some that are just way better than the rest. And again, in line with wanting to just make everything awesome, instead of going and like taking Royal Ring out of the game or making Unity weaker like people suggest all the time, we're like, hey, what if we just make every ring really good? So here's an example of one that's meant for a barb. This is sort of a throwback to the old days of whirlwinding. So this ring, the new Skull Grasp effect, just makes your whirlwind do a whole lot more damage. Here's an example of a new monk item, Gungdo gear. This one's actually really cool if you've played with this at the demo station, which, by the way, you can see any of these new items over at the demo stations and play with them if you haven't yet. Gungdo gear makes it so when something dies with exploding palm on it, it explodes exploding palm onto everything around it. Yo, dog, I heard you like exploding palms. Put this on a Rat King rat and just watch. Just watch. Here's one where vaulting will leave caltrops behind. So the idea of this is pretty basic. It's, yeah, we want you to have mobility skills, but we also want you to be able to corral your enemies and sort of funnel them wherever you want. So this just sort of gives you a way to do both of those things at the same time. This one's for Crusaders. This is a belt that makes bombardment periodically trigger on nearby enemies. And as you can see, we're trying to spread really powerful effects to all the slots. The bracers, the belts, everything. We want all of the items that drop to get you excited, not things to just be like, oh, it's a shoulder, no one cares. So this belt is especially awesome if you get a Mortal Drama, which makes your bombard trigger 2 bombards, and then you use Lord Commander so it gets more damage. It's pretty amazing. Julian may come and beat me up when this goes to PTR. And this is one where a lot of time we make cool items that are, their only real purpose is to supplement other cool items. So the helm right here gives you every rune on slow time. And this is mostly because of the set that I'm about to show you, which is the new wizard set that's coming in the next, a big future patch. So the wizard set here is really meant to embody the idea that wizards are meant to be these mobile, masters of control, ranged damage dealers. So this one lets you shave cooldown off of your slow time whenever you use your ranged attacks. The 4-piece makes the slow time itself deal a ton of damage to everything in it. And then the 6-piece makes it so that all of your ranged attacks, like in this case Frozen Orb, do 500% more damage to everything inside the slow time. This is our new Demon Hunter set. So this is one Kevin requested for ages. He just kept telling us, like, just make me a multi-shot item. I just want multi-shot to be cool. And we're like, all right, we'll get to it, we'll get to it, we'll get to it.
They said we couldn't have shotguns in the game. They were wrong.
So eventually we made Marauder, and we were like, all right, we really need to make that multi-shot item, because Demon Hunter's real purpose in life is to shoot things in the face with arrows. And they're not doing that. So let's make a set that's really just about shooting things with your bow. So this set is all work in progress. But the idea is that your generators will give you discipline as your 2-piece. Your 4-piece will make it so that whenever there's nothing near you, you take less damage. And if anything gets near you, you still have a couple seconds to react before you lose it. And the 6-piece is your generators and your multi-shot will deal bonus damage for every point of discipline you have. So this really combos well with things like plus max discipline on your quiver or your cloak, or if you take the preparation rune, that gives you extra max discipline. And finally, this is just a throwback to everyone who loved barbarians in classic Diablo 3. For about a year, barbarians just basically ran around permanently whirlwinding all the time. And we had talked about this a lot at the time when this was happening. We were like, are the barbarians too good? Do we need to change whirlwind? And I remember us saying, like, you know, it's not really a problem that whirlwind is this awesome. It's just a problem that no one had to do anything. It just automatically beats every other set or gear setup that you might have. So we made a set that's just built around whirlwind. This set is your 2 and 4-piece will make your rend last longer and deal more damage. And then your 6-piece will make it do triple damage to anyone that's rended. So you rend things, then you whirlwind, grab a skullgrass spring, and then you just spin to win through the whole zone. And now I'm going to kick it back over to Julian to conclude our legendary workshop.
Okay, so we're at the final stage, the reflect stage. To recap, we gathered a bunch of ideas. You saw us do that, and then we did some refining. And you probably all can't see the whiteboard up here, but there's a lot of things up here that got crossed out with big red markers. And it seems kind of grim. But the thing is we actually got a lot of really cool, exciting ideas as well. Some that we might have to pound on a little longer in order to find out like what's really in there. But we did select one that we thought was better than the rest, and the one that we felt like really should go into the game. So before we talk about the one that we're going to put in the game, I'd like to first cover just a couple that didn't make it and why we chose not to do them. So let's see. We had this idea that came in from the community, which was a belt that you could wear that would grant you random skills from another class. That sounds pretty exciting, right? So, like, especially for anybody who remembers Enigma armor. So we're not going to go with that idea, and I want to explain why. So we have a design tenet that we called concentrated coolness. And what that is all about is the idea of, in order for classes to feel really good and juicy and maintain their coolness, it's really important that other classes don't steal their abilities, right? They don't infringe upon other classes. So it's kind of a really important rule, because as soon as, let's say, Crusaders can start teleporting everywhere, the wizard is a little less cool now, because teleportation is the wizard's thing. So for the reasons of concentrated coolness, we don't like to have classes share abilities, and for that reason, we decided to pass on that idea. Now, to cover another idea that didn't quite make it, I'm going to turn the mic over to Roger.
All right, guys. So something else that came up both on I think it was Twitter, and came up on stage, surprisingly here, is the idea of offensive potions. The term John told me, I'm a programmer, I don't know the term for it, but he called it clarity of intent. Our intent with potions is to make it where you're using them when you need to heal, and we want to make sure you're not using them before you're ready, because it causes this gameplay of using the potion before you need it, then you get into combat and you can't heal, and you may not have known why. What, is it too far away? Oh, I'm sorry. They told me I have to put it like right up in my face. Hopefully everybody heard that. But yeah, we basically want to make sure that the intent of potions is that you're using them defensively and you're not using them, you know, preemptively before combat for a different purpose. So I think I hand it now over to John.
All right. Hey, everybody. So we had a lot of great ideas from actually all sources. As you can see, tons of green ideas that we greenlit we're going to do in the future. But the one I'd like to highlight today is one a wizard source that rotates damage types. So the idea was it's a crystal ball that rotates through the 4 elements the wizard has. You know, fire, ice, fire, cold, lightning, arcane. And what it does is when it rotates that element for, 5, 10 seconds, you deal double damage, triple damage. So it really fulfills the elementalist fantasy. And that's what I really like about this idea. It's because, the wizard's really about master of elements, but we kind of lost that in Reaper of Souls with how elemental damage types work. You really want to focus on one. So then you're not just a frost wizard. You don't cast multiple elements. This might let you do that. This combined with the Talrasha set, you really can do all elements. On top of that, what else is good is this idea is actually applicable to all classes. It may not be the same elementalist fantasy, but what we can say is maybe it'll be a ring or an amulet that's got a gem in it that lets you rotate through the elements. So you can put different types of spenders and generators on your bars, still be effective, and play different builds from what's possible now, because right now you really want to focus on one element.
That's an awesome idea. All right, so we're at the end here, and first I really have to say, from the bottom of our hearts on the Diablo 3 team and at Blizzard, thank you for coming on this journey with us. We love you guys, and death is just the beginning. So we have a lot of awesome patches coming up and a lot of cool items for you to hunt and find. But thank you for your feedback and your support. You guys rule. And now, questions.
So while we're setting up for this, yesterday in Q&A I got a question that I need to clarify, which was saying, hey, have you guys ever thought about putting Uber Diablo in the game? And I was like, yeah, we talked about it. It's a good idea. We'll probably do it someday. And then the session ended, and I wandered off stage going, I answered those questions well. Everything's going OK. And our senior monster designer, Matthew Berger, comes by and says, I made Uber Diablo, and he's in the game, right? And I said, well, now that you say that, that does sound super familiar. And he's like, well, I'm not going to make monsters for you if you're not going to appreciate them. And like, no, I didn't mean it that way. I love you, man. And then he was like, well, I can't stay mad at your dumb face. And so we high-fived and we hugged. And I would like to clarify that Diablo is, in fact, in the game. And he's part of the Hellfire missions now since Reaper of Souls. So.
Hello. First of all, hello, and thank you for everything that you did this year. It was really nice. It's really fun to play with my husband every night when I go home. I wanted to know, I'm connected from the European server, and we actually, before 2.1, we had like a really equal distribution in the levels from normal to T6. And what we see right now in European is that there is a really high concentration on T6 when we play normal adventure mode. And there's, when higher Paragon persons enter to a public game and they see lower Paragon persons, they either go out or kick them out. And in Diablo 2, we had the chance to select how high the Paragon would be so that we could create a game like, for example, plus 200 Paragon public game. So I would like to know if it's possible to create something like this again and be able to play games with, I don't know, 400 Paragons people and not having to choose another game or to kick someone out because we have to carry him through the game.
That's a really good question about how do we want to do matchmaking for Paragon. Kevin?
So we haven't pulled the trigger on something like that yet, and honestly, we have a dilemma with that. We're not sure how to solve it at this point, so we should go maybe start a thread in the forums, and you guys can let us know what you think. There are a lot. I play public games almost exclusively at this point, so I just join whatever public game. I have lots of different characters, different levels. And there are situations where somebody will say, hey, let's vote kick this guy because his Paragon's not high enough. And other ones where I'm playing with someone at Paragon 600, higher than me, and we're mowing through everything and everyone seems to be having fun. We worry that by having Paragon bans, that those moments will go away completely. And this is anecdotal, right? This is not science. It's my own personal experience is that most of the games I play, people don't have that problem. They're not kicking other people. They're not leaving. And when they do leave, someone else pops in within a minute. So that's why we haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, because it doesn't seem to be at any sort of crisis level, and we didn't want to take away the mixed Paragon moments so far. If it became much worse, I think that we'd much more seriously consider that. If you guys are having very different anecdotal experiences where every game I'm in, you know, I get kicked because my Paragon's not high enough, even though I can play at Torment 6 or something, let us know, and we'll continue to consider it.
Thank you.
Hello, I got a question about items as it exists in 2.0. I have a level 70 wizard, and I got an item drop in original Diablo 3. This belt has affixes that no longer seem to apply in 2.0, and every belt I've seen so far in 2.0 and beyond is worse than the one I've currently got equipped because it's got affixes that no longer apply. I was wondering if affixes will be expanded again, or if new effects will be eventually put into play that will allow that belt to be replaced without being a damage hit.
Which belts are you talking about right now? Witching Hour?
I wish I could remember. I think it's the Witching Hour. Yeah.
So Witching Hour actually drops. You can get a higher level version of it. You can get a level 70 one of it.
Yeah, this one I believe has crit damage on it.
Yeah, that drops right now. So it's a really good belt. And we don't really want to re-broaden our affixes. That one was one of those sort of two classic Diablo designs of, it's cool because it breaks the rules. And we're like, okay, well, yeah, that's cool in some cases. But really, you end up with stuff like Witching Hour, where it just sort of overshadows a lot of belts in general.
And you never get another upgrade again.
Right. So what we want to do instead is make more of the belts like the ones I just showed off here, where their powers are just so crazy that you're like, I can get 40 crit damage anywhere, but I can't get automatic bombardments.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that instead.
Looking forward to that then. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Hi, my question has to do with the necessity of having two unities at high level of greater rift play and how you plan to address that, because at the moment it's pretty necessary if you're pressing higher than 35 to have a unity, especially in hardcore. So is there any plans to address either unity, either scaling it back or scaling other things? Because it can literally be the difference of one item of 50 plus hours of farming, whether you can do 35s versus 40 plus.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a piece of feedback that comes up a lot, and I do want to take a real quick second to make the distinction. A lot of people give us this feedback a lot, like, I have to have item X or set X to get to the next rift level. Generally, my answer is good. That was like the entire premise of our Loot 2.0 was items should be really impactful. The rarer they are, the more powerful they are. Unity is actually an example where I look at it and I go, this is all of our item philosophy culminating in a single item. The problem for me that I have with Unity is more that it's really awesome and you don't have different options, right? Like, we want to add more things. Like, for example, I hate the Ironheart breastplate. It's got this really cool name, does nothing interesting. So we want to make really powerful survivability items like Unity, but across all the different slots. We're introducing a new gem, if you're at yesterday's panel, that you could see. So we're going to start adding more defensive gems and just give you more ways to get to that power level without it being one specific item you have to find.
All right, I think we're almost out of time. So it's either a very quick question and a quick answer.
So a lot of classes have specific items that they can only use, and they're used across the board, except barbarians. Mighty weapons don't look or feel very mighty in comparison to some of the other legendaries. So any chances on changing that?
That's a good question, and yeah, you're right. You're right. Mighty weapons aren't that awesome. That's my bad. We'll keep working on it, just like with all of our items. It's really important that we have diversity and a broad spectrum. We kind of dropped the ball.
You know the mighty weapon that's you're actually holding a tree? It's like a log. I would like to make that one better and do some sort of legendary for that, for example. Make it worthwhile.
I'd like to have mighty weapons or maybe a mighty belt that allows barbs to keep their concentrated coolness from D2 and not give that to...
Nice use of the lingo. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll be around and at the community booth if you have any more questions. Again, thank you.